Hey everyone, you're listening to the Alex Files. I'm Alex.
And I'm also Alex.
And we are two friends who, yes, have the same name, here to talk about real life stuff, the hard stuff, the fun stuff, and the stuff that makes us go, okay, wow. Episode 2, we are out here.
Wow. We're here. We're out here.
Wow. And, we're taking quite a pivot today. Our first episode was kind of kicking us off into our pod journey, thinking about, what is it like to be named Alex? But today really just wanted to take a complete different shift and talk about something that I think we all in the past almost a year have definitely experienced: grief, particularly related to loss, death, and trauma. So, it's going to be fun.
We're diving right in.
We're diving right in.
We're deep.
And we're ready to get real on this. So I guess, yeah, this is a huge and very loaded topic. But I think, I don't know, for both of us, certainly have had our own experiences in different ways of working with grief in all its forms, and just, wanted to share some of our own experiences and kind of the reality of it. And maybe you might relate in some way to what we're talking about here today.
Yeah. And I think also talk about how we get through it and how we deal with it and cope with it and learn to live with it, and not let it dictate our actions necessarily, though it does sometimes control our emotions.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know, maybe just kicking it off with grief. I think, traditionally in pop culture, or oftentimes people think about the stages of grief, that they're going to be a certain way, shock, I don't remember what they are. Shock, denial, anger, something, acceptance, rage, also anger. And, I think those are maybe helpful, but also those were originally developed for people who they themselves were sick and dying. So not for someone who is grieving.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, and I think sometimes that sets us up for this idea that okay, I've gone through the shock of this grief, of this loss, and now I'm moving on to the next phase. But in reality, when you lose someone or go through a traumatic event, there's no linear way. It just is kind of a mess. It's all over the place.
Yeah. And that expectation of, okay, here's a map, we'll work through it, I'm here. You slide back, you jump forward, you go underneath and swerve over, and then repeat it again. And then, I mean, it can feel discouraging too when you have those moments when you realize you're back in this emotion when you thought you got over it. Really don't like that phrase, that you'll get over it. Because I think that's very unrealistic and unhealthy to have that perception about grief and trauma and pain.
Totally. I think, we're sort of conditioned to think it's almost like an obstacle course, or a set of things, you hit this one and then you're done. You make it through the first year of grief and then you're going to be fine. But it's so much more complicated than that. And there is no playbook for any of this. I guess I'm happy to like dive into my own
Yeah.
grief time. Yeah, so a little bit about me is, as a 31-year-old, I've certainly experienced loss, and, ultimately, like, we all experience loss at some form in our lives. Like, that is a part of life, but I've just had a lot kind of jam-packed in 3 decades or so. So yeah, when I was 6 years old, let's see, 5 days away from my 7th birthday, my mom passed away from ovarian cancer, which was a very, big loss and kind of informed a lot of my own growing up. And it's something I've worked on through, like, with the help of like therapy and writing and lots of different things for the past almost 2 decades, which has been so helpful. But it was such a loss at a young age that I think it, yeah, it's a huge thing and it's a separate thing, but I think it's really informed how I kind of like see the world and think about life and death. Like, I think I have that problem.
What kind of, if you feel comfortable sharing,
Yeah.
what kind of ways do you think that it has altered, and what do you see differently?
I think that, it's shaped, well, personally, it shaped my own kind of like recollection of memories and remembering someone, because I was so young when my mom passed away. So I didn't, I have some of my own original memories of her, but a lot of them are from stories other people tell me that have shifted over time, and photos of her. But she herself was a photographer, so a lot of the photos are photos she took, which is really cool.
Yeah,
But
seeing the world through her eye.
Yeah, which is awesome. And like, but also too, like, learning, I think for a lot of my life, I thought like, oh, my mom was this, like, she was an amazing, um, like, talented, loving person. But I think learning in my 20s, like, she also had her faults. Like, it's so easy to put someone, especially a parent or a really close like loved one, on a pedestal after they die and think that they're like this kind of like perfect person.
Yeah.
But like, that's not the case. And I think learning about her faults and those interactions people had with her that are just like normal life things, like things that were like annoying about her or faults of her own, like, learning those made me like love her more and feel so much closer to her, because it's like, oh yeah, she's a real person. Like, I can picture her more rather than being like, oh my God, like,
This character that other people
Yeah.
have built up and photographs have created, but knowing the real in and out. It can also help you feel like when you're in life and you're going through something tough, you're like, well, we're not all perfect.
Totally.
Right? And it's
Yeah.
okay if I am struggling sometimes with that.
Yeah. Like, it's okay if I mess up. And so, and then I think in terms of seeing the world, just, I think just trying to like take advantage of every day and knowing that, like, life like, it's a cliche, but like, life is very short and you don't know how like long you're going to be around. She passed away when she was in her 40s. So, I think just like, I think being more aware of other people in my life or friends of friends who, like, they themselves are going through a loss, knowing that I can maybe be there in a way, whether they're open to it or not, it doesn't really matter. But if they ever need someone to talk to or anything, like, I feel like I can be a resource for them. I have some friends, some good friends who have like lost parents, like whether it's their mom or their dad, like over the years, and just sadly, like, being able to connect over like a lost parent is something that we like have in common now.
I think this is important and can be very helpful to not
Totally.
feel alone, because I think big things like this, death, can certainly isolate people. I feel like certain topics, including this, people shut down and don't know how to do the right thing, quote unquote. So they just don't do anything, don't say anything. And it's like, oh, so being
Yeah.
able to have someone to talk to that doesn't look at you like you're, you know, this purple person or something, but to be sitting down empathetically next to you and say, yeah, I understand. This is incredibly painful. And there's nothing that can change it.
And it's so, I totally get like not knowing what to say,
Yeah.
because there is no right thing to say. But I think just acknowledging that you're there for that person, even if they don't know what they need or you don't know what they need, just knowing that you're there to support them in whatever way or down the line, like that's so huge. And but I also know that like, and this kind of shifts to the second kind of big loss of my life, but like, you know, losing someone you love can really change relationships with friends or people in your life or the people that knew that person.
Mm.
So yeah, so 2 years ago, which is very crazy, but in January of 2019, January 15th, my boyfriend Phil passed away suddenly. And it was obviously like very unexpected. He was 34. And I feel like the moment that I found out that he had died, like just like time got all super weird, like just wonky. Like it was like, okay, what day is it? Like, where am I? Like, am I going through the motions? Like, what's going on? And thankfully, you know, this was before the pandemic. So my family had actually already planned on coming up to visit that weekend just because it was like a long weekend. So they came up a day early and were there with me. But, you know, those first like couple weeks of like right after losing him were like such a blur. It was like, I think the only time I really had to myself was when I was in the shower, which was really great, but also like it was, and we'll get into this in another episode, but like it was very much a lesson in like setting boundaries. Even if it was like those early decisions in like the day or the day after, like, do I want to be with his family right now? Or do I want to go like get a burger and a martini with my family? Probably the latter. Like, I think that's what I need.
Yeah.
You know, and just practicing like saying no. And sometimes I would say things, what I needed or what I didn't want. And it felt like someone else who knew what they wanted, like was in my body saying it. Cause I was like, wow, like I just said that. Like, that's wild. Like I have so much like power in this moment, even though like everything feels like it's garbage and it's crumbling and like this is such a mess. So I looking back, like I'm really proud of myself for somehow knowing what I needed and knowing what I needed to do. And even if I didn't know what I needed, I like was like, I don't know what I need, but like I need to eat a half pint of Ben and Jerry's right now and just like sit
We're going to start
around.
there.
We're going to start there and maybe we're going to watch some bad reality TV, but like I think just that was really important. And then just like another really, really important point to that is like when you lose a partner or a family member and the news is like still kind of under wraps before you share it with the world, just knowing that like once you share it with the world, like everything will change. And I mean, it sounds really dramatic, but like I crafted an email like 4 or 5 days after he died. And I was like, this is kind of like the situation. You know, just wanted to let everyone know, like send it to like friends and family. And I was kind of intentional about saying like, please don't call, like text or email are fine. But before I sent it, my dad said, you know, once you send this, like you're going to be getting, like your phone's going to blow up. Yeah. So just, you know, sort of enjoy this bubble that we've created before and know that like things will change after, which is so true. And I'm so glad that like I listened to him saying that, because, you know, he'd lost my mom like, I don't know, 24 years earlier. And even though the internet was still in the early phases, it's still the same. Like it's still the same feeling. And I think I was still even in that situation, like once the world knew, once like friends and family and coworkers knew, I feel
Becomes
like,
more real, maybe.
yeah, and it feels like the kind of walls you built like crumble a bit, but you still have to be super mindful about like keeping people at a distance if you need to. Not in a mean way, but just in a way where you're like preserving yourself.
Yeah, because how many conversations do you have energy for? How many, I know everyone does want to help, and at the same time, you don't need everybody to help. And
Totally.
so being able to set those boundaries are difficult and important. And I want to take a second to acknowledge how incredible that was that you were able to articulate what you needed. And that can be very difficult. And I think people, even for you to just say, maybe I could eat some ice cream and watch, this, and that's such a skillful thing to do, because I think a lot of people could also like just lose complete focus of themselves and stop eating, stop getting out of bed, and really just like spiral with that. And I think you did such a good job surviving and maintaining your wellness through that, which is incredibly difficult. So I'm wondering, is that because you had practice and you had already experienced this, maybe?
I think so. I mean, I didn't ever think that like this obviously would happen. It's one of those things that you like, I don't know, you don't hear back from someone and you think like, oh my God, they died. But like they don't, you visualize that in your brain as like the last stop. Like, so you have played it out in your mind in a way so that it's not like maybe unrealistic when it happens, but usually it never happens.
But like, I think, because I can relate to that, because I think once you have an experience that's traumatic with grief or loss, and someone almost died or did pass away, your brain jumps to that faster in the future, as a possibility, because that fear is still subconsciously a reminder of the past.
Totally. But I think, I don't know, I think maybe subconsciously or something, like all of the years and years and years of therapy that I did, as well as like my own writing and kind of thinking about like who was my mom and like what was my relationship to her or with her and like that whole loss. Since I wasn't, I guess in a way, since I was so like I was like 6, almost 7 when she died, I didn't really have much control about how I like grieved because I was so young. I was just like I did start going to therapy, I think a couple years after she died. But then I was like, I don't know, just like you don't have much agency as a kid. And also I didn't have like there's so many more resources now out there in terms of grief sources, if you will. And I think that this time in losing Phil, I was able to kind of say like, you know what, like I'm going to do this how I want to do this. Like I don't know, at the time was like 29, and like I'm going to grieve how I want to grieve. And I genuinely like after he died, I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to go to like grief groups and like church basements or whatever the sort of pop cultural reference is for that. But you know what? There's so many online resources and groups and podcasts and like writing exercises and things like that that like didn't exist before, and I'm so grateful for them because as much as I would have been down to like go to a random church basement, even though I'm not very religious or whatever, but like it's just great that so many things exist that didn't before, and that people from around the country and around the world can gather in their shared experience. And I think for that first year, like this group I discovered from an author and someone who like lost her husband and dad within like a month. Her name's Nora McNerney. She started this group, this online group called the Hot Young Widows Club, and it is awesome. And it's like, you know, this idea that, I mean, you don't have to be young. I mean, we're all hot. You don't have to be young to be a widow. But it's for anyone who has lost like a partner, whether it's a spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, and just a place, like an online place for you to gather and say the things that you need to say to other people who get it. Like, oh, I'm coming up on the year anniversary of losing my person, or oh my God, like I'm still getting these weird memories from Facebook about like my partner, which is always a thing. And yeah, I think that like you know, knowing kind of what you need, especially, you know, we can kind of talk about those anniversaries.
Yeah, those anniversaries.
Yeah.
Sigh.
Um
So I also want to talk about a concept that I didn't know really existed, but totally does. When I've been to some church basement meetings, and I'll tell you, they were very helpful. I went to something called Al-Anon for 3 years, and it's like group therapy. And one of the premises of that group is take what you like and leave the rest. And since I'm not very religious, you know, I was able to still find very helpful things because I discovered that there can be a grief process for people who are still living, and losing somebody that you love to addiction can be very bizarre too, because they're still here, but the person that you knew or that people tell you about is very much gone. And not to be pessimistic, not everybody recovers, and sometimes
Totally.
it's more powerful to accept the disease and try to love the person, but there's still a grief process with that, and realizing that and accepting that. And yeah, so just wanted to add that in there. I thought that was an interesting concept that I read about through Al-Anon, and it makes a lot of sense. And even the grief of losing a relationship, or betrayal,
Totally.
betrayal, things, things that we're grieving during the pandemic, experiences,
Oh my gosh.
events, opportunities, even the little things like that we used to do to try to improve our mental health and our lives. We're not able to do a lot of those things now. So
Yeah, I think that grief, like traditionally, maybe it's like, oh, it's kind of tied to like death, but you're so right. Like it can be tied to um, the loss of a person in a way that's like related to like addiction or I don't know, like Alzheimer's or dementia, like anything
yeah,
where they're the person that you know is like the real them is gone, even though they're physically still there. Um, or a friendship or a relationship. And I think tying in the pandemic is so real because there are so many things that we're all grieving. I think it's easy to think like, well, like, you know, when so many people are dying of COVID, I think it can be easy to feel guilty about feeling sad or feeling like
yeah,
you're grieving like the loss of like even like going out um, to be with friends and normal interactions. But those are all super valid. And yeah, we have lost time and
that's the thing.
yeah,
And at any stage in life, time is so precious.
it's so precious. And I think it's especially hard. I mean, for anyone, it doesn't matter what stage you are in life, but when you had plans to like, whatever it is, like a career, maybe you're like trying to get married, have a kid, whatever it may be, yeah, that's all a huge loss. And
And then
yeah.
just the anxiety of not knowing either, because sometimes plans are something that people with anxiety love to have, and it's a
Hmm.
security thing, and then things are so canceled and unplanned and changing and unknown. It's like such a difficult space to even begin to process the grief in,
The uncertainty, yeah, coupled with like having all these things that used to be like normal that we didn't know would be taken away, like gone so quickly, is just the biggest troll. And yeah, I hate
It's
it. Like,
surreal. And I keep looping back to like, we still can't do this. And
yeah,
that guilt of, oh, it's like people don't even have food and are dying and can't pay rent, and I'm able to maintain those things. And it's like, it's okay. I think we need to practice validating our emotions, because like dialectic behavioral therapy taught me, like two extremes can exist at the same time. It can be very sad and tragic that people are dying and going without, and I am still valid in feeling sad about my life and my situations, even though it's not as grave. There's no need to compare. They're both valid.
completely. And like, yeah, there are so many people who have lost their jobs, have lost their lives, and lots of like very, very terrible things that are from a perfect bad storm of like the last 4 years, along with the pandemic and everything. But yeah, I think it's so,
Yeah.
I mean, at the beginning of the pandemic and throughout, I've definitely had moments where I am just like so pissed that I can't like go on, like, try dating again, like go on a date with some guy and like make out with him. I don't know. That would be great. Like, it's so rude to me that I have gone through, and it's not over, as we'll talk about, like grieving someone that you've lost, but like I did a lot of grief work the first year after Phil died. And then, it's like
You
I
were
felt
ready to
ready.
try to um, move forward and grow and focus on things that you wanted to do in life. I remember, not to bring it up, but like you were saying, you wanted to go to more concerts and get out more and do things. And it was like
I know. I
so
mean,
healthy and so awesome. And then this, it's just surreal. It's surreal. So people feel like they're being robbed of opportunities, and they very much are.
yeah, I think, I would say about like 2 months from like January of last year until like mid-March when shelter in place started, I guess, at least here in California. Um, yeah, of like, okay, like, yeah, I'm like ramping up for like starting out the year and getting my like dating profile together. And then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, dude, like, yeah. Um, so, and that, yeah, we'll talk more about that on another episode, but
Yeah, that's a whole other
that's a whole
story.
other bag of
We got thoughts on that.
shenanigans. We got
Yeah.
thoughts, THOTS.
We got thoughts on
We
that.
have we got thoughts. But I think, yeah, it's whatever you're going through. It's all just a doozy.
And it's valid. And
That's so
we got to
valid.
be kind, extra, extra soft and kind to ourselves, and just keep on holding on and surviving, because we're not through it yet. And we're doing a great job. Every day that we do something that takes care of ourselves. And if that means getting a shower, eating, sleeping, following through on work, or just taking a break, it's all very necessary.
And remembering to like keep breathing, like genuinely, like it's so important, and going outside, even if it's just for a bit, but really just taking it like hour by hour, is huge. So wanted to talk a little bit about um, moments with our own like grief and trauma that come up, whether it's in a anniversary, traumaversary, death anniversary, whatever that looks like, or when it comes up unexpectedly, not tied to a certain date, and kind of like how, I don't know, like how we work through those things, and kind of skills or tools that you found to be helpful, because those dates are going to keep coming back around as the calendar year goes on, and then I don't know, it could also come up when you least expect it.
Yes. So you recently had the 2-year anniversary in January. So this month. Do you want to talk a little bit about like how that went, what you did, and maybe how it differed from the first year, if at all, if at all?
Totally. Yeah. So January 15th is Phil's, I guess, death anniversary. So for his 2-year anniversary, I mean, both this year and last year, I decided to take the day off work, which was such a great call. And with the idea that like I don't have any plans for the day and it doesn't really matter, but just knowing that I don't have to like be online and worried about like, what's happening in the work world was a huge relief. And just kind of focusing on like taking care of myself. I think for anyone, if you're able to swing it and you're going through an anniversary like that, whatever it may be, whether it's from a loss or like, and if it is from a loss, like it could be like the day that they died, or maybe it's like your wedding anniversary or their birthday or your birthday, like whatever it is, doesn't really matter. But if you're able to swing it, I think that's such a like gift and like a huge thing. So for Phil's 1-year anniversary, I took the day off, and one of my good friends and roommates, she and I went, we just kind of like felt out the day, but she was there with me the night that Phil died. So it was like really huge that we could like still, I mean, we still live together, but like still like be together and experience that. So we like had breakfast, and then we drove into the city, like to San Francisco, and just had like a really fun day in Japantown, and decided to like go like take photos in the photo booth with all the like I don't know, Harajuku, or like all the like anime, or not anime, oh god, this is like not aging well, you know what I mean, like all the cute little filters and like stickers, those photos.
I don't even know the word to say that, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, anyways, very fun. And then we walked around and like looked at cute like books about like little kittens and hedgehogs, because everything is just extra cute. And then we got sushi from one of the like sushi boats, so it like goes around on a thing and moves. It's really wild.
Whoa, never seen that.
It was cool. This was all obviously like before the pandemic as we know it. And then we decided to go to the beach and just like write little notes to Phil. And we walked along the beach when the sun was setting. It was really cold because it's January. And then we like, set them on fire in a little candle. And that was like so sweet. And we got like firecrackers from Chinatown when we came back to the house, and like had a little dance party. And it was just nice to be with her and with my other roommates, and kind of celebrating it. There was still a sadness, and I think, I could feel that same feeling I felt a year earlier in my body, like feeling anxious and kind of on edge, but also allowing myself to like surrender to like what I needed. And I think just like experiencing and like doing fun things was really like that escape, and celebrating him in a way,
That's incredibly beautiful, incredibly effective, beautiful, healthy. I'm in awe right now.
Kind of like reclaiming the day. I mean, honestly, I will be real, there was twerking involved.
Oh, I love that. That is incredible. And I think I don't know, but I just kind of want to cover the fact that I feel like you leaned in. And
totally.
leaning in the grief and trauma processing, I think, is very important. I think there could be some people who process it and would want to avoid it and keep working and distract themselves. But I think the fact that you acknowledged and made the effort to lean in to what happened and experience the day with the mindfulness of that, it could have been a wild ride of sadness and stuff, but you were able to find some really beautiful high moments, it sounds like, which
totally
sounds very like resilient and restorative.
It was really I don't know, it was like a really special day. And I could have, yeah, I mean, had I woken up and felt differently, I could have definitely just like stayed in bed all day, which also would have been fine.
Yeah,
Or
whatever you
um,
needed.
yeah, whatever. And I totally get too like needing, like, you know, if you maybe you need to go to work and distract yourself or like bury yourself in work, but I don't know, I just really didn't want to do that. So I decided for the second anniversary, like 2 weeks ago, that I would sort of do a similar thing. I mean, definitely feeling the day out, but yeah, we decided, my friend and roommate and I decided to just kind of like sleep in. It was a Friday, and have breakfast. And then we went back into San Francisco, and it ended up being like the most beautiful day, which is very rare for the Bay Area in January. And it was like 70 degrees at the beach.
Wow.
I know, we like got sandwiches and just like sat on the sand and like watched the waves and wrote little notes to Phil again, which was so sweet, and attempted to build our own like very mini bonfire, which was kind of funny, but it worked. And it was really sweet, and just having that time together and being outside and being near the water was super restorative, and just it felt like hopeful, even though, you know, we're still in a pandemic. And it's weird. The second anniversary was strange because it felt like no time had really passed at all because of the lost year to this pandemic.
Wow. That makes sense though, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I think, but you know, however, like anyone decides to recognize that day or not, like whatever works for you. I think
Yeah.
just going with your gut as much as you can, and yeah, and not feeling like this expectation to like even do something. Like you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, and just allowing yourself to be as you are
Mm-hmm.
and listening to yourself. You know, what do you want to do? Do you really want to do this? Do you want to go to work? Do you want to lay in bed? What's going to feel good right now? And it's all about like self-care, and that can look different for people. And
Completely.
if you're not ready to celebrate it and you want to focus on something, do what's best for you, right? Because there is no
Oh
map, there
yeah.
is no guidebook. um we literally just have to try things out and feel it out as we go.
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah. And I mean the working thing I get in a way. Whether it's like an anniversary or not, you know, after Phil died, I think I was off work for like maybe 5 work days, but I went back to work when I felt like, I don't know, a week after he died. It felt like the right time to go back. I felt like I had my time that I needed, and I had my time with my family, but I just needed like something to focus on that wasn't all of the production of like what
yeah.
happens after someone dies. So I remember going back to work, and you know, one of my coworkers was like, "Oh, like you shouldn't be back here. It hasn't been enough time." And I was like, "You know what? Like I know what I need. Like I think thank you for your insight, but
Yeah,
like there's no
I don't
like
like the word should
no."
with yourself or other people, you
And
know.
I'm quoting Nora McInerney, who's the creator of the Hot Young Widows Club, but she's like, "Don't shit on anyone because," and it's true. Like, there's no right way to play this. Yeah.
I want to just channel some energy right now and
Mhm.
say one day maybe we could get her on the podcast to interview her, because that would be incredible. I'm just gonna put that out into the universe.
Love that.
Send that
So,
love note out, Nora.
still
One
gonna
day.
send it. We're gonna do Illuminati. These are some Illuminati hands, which channeling the power of the great Beyonce. We're gonna make it happen. Just get those
I
hands
just wanted
going.
to put that secret into the universe.
Love power positive thinking. Hey,
Well, let's take a quick commercial break, and then we can jump back into talking about how these anniversaries feel and how they also just kind of pop up on us with no rhyme and reason. Okay, I have a problem.
What?
My computer's gonna die.
Oh no.
So I'm so sorry, but we'll just pop another Anchor commercial in right there.
Okay.
That'll get us
No,
more
no.
money. I'm so sorry. I just
No.
didn't want it to shut off mid. When I put this stuff on, my computer had full battery, but I guess all these productions are draining it. So one moment, please. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm gonna text. Oh, no, you're totally good.
The cute thing is I don't have an outlet around here. No.
Oh no. Okay, we're gonna figure it out. It's all good.
Fook. Oh, baby.
Did you figure it out?
Yeah. Hold up. Oh my god, it fits. Fuck.
Really? Oh, heck yeah.
Oh my god.
What a treat. Okay, all good.
Shit.
I also forgot what sort of point we were talking about. So I was like, oh, maybe we're going to commercial break because we forgot.
No, it was because I kept checking. Do you see my arm? I kept checking it. So I didn't stop mid conversation.
Totally. You're good. I put celery salt on the cup and it's so good. It's very salty.
Fuck yeah, dude. Oh, vape hit.
Get that. Get it. Take them to the Bruges.
I hope I didn't come off as a hater. I think when we first started about the work thing, I was like, you should lean into it and not do that. And I hope that I recovered.
No. I mean, I feel
you're totally right.
But I also
whatever
feel
you want to do.
Yeah, but I think it's totally, everyone's on their journey, but I think that it's a tricky balance of being oh my god, I'm gonna dive into work and really just wallow in my work, and it's dude, acknowledge that you're going through some shit.
Because I know people who don't acknowledge stuff. Growing up in an alcoholic family, nobody talks about shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got the straw. Okay. Also, we can also shift to me not interviewing you, but you know what I mean? To get to feel
okay, yeah, okay.
Because
I have a different approach to the grief anniversary because
totally
I didn't have anything to okay.
But I'll maybe wrap. I'll be and we're back, and then I'll kind of wrap mine up, and they'll be so I want to talk to you about blah blah blah.
Okay.
All
right.
And we're back. Thanks, guys, for bearing with us for our necessary ads, but girls gotta live. And so here we are talking about grief. I think loss is inevitable, and there are so many ways to grieve and work through it. There's no right way. There are lots of different ideas of what, the right way to do grief or loss is. Oh, you blah, blah, blah. But again, you shouldn't listen to the shoulders.
Yeah.
And just do your own thing, and ultimately take care of yourself. I will say real quick that with the loss of someone, your own relationships may change, and that's okay.
What is that? I wanted to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I think whether it's, when you lose someone, their own friends or your own friends or your collective friends may not know how to react to it. Because it's too much. It's too sad. It's too intense. And that's super valid. And sometimes the people who show up for you in your life when you lose your person might not be the people that you expected. They could be like people that you haven't heard from in a while, or like acquaintances, or it could be your like best friend. But sometimes you may lose touch with folks and they may come back around down the line in your life. You never know. But like I think it's easy to feel hurt by the fact that sometimes like not everyone can handle it. And sometimes people might like, there's no right thing to say at all to someone who has experienced loss, especially when it has just happened. But there are certainly things that like you shouldn't say.
What types of things are those? Let's just run through that real quick for a PSA.
Let's see. What types of things shouldn't you say? I feel like I had a list of them like right after Phil died. Well, someone at work the first day I was back was like, "Oh, I feel so bad for you." And I was like, I just started laughing and I was like, "Yeah, me too. This sucks."
Wow.
Yeah, so that was interesting.
That's not a great empathetic approach, I'll tell you that much.
No, yeah, that was kind of wild. And then I don't know, I think just, folks who obviously like they're coming from a good place, but it's the delivery. It's like, well, how did they die? Or like, oh, I knew someone like that. This is what they did, and it all worked out for them. And it's like, okay, like
that kind of minimizes it.
Totally.
Like, this is not nobody's experience. Even if they lost the same person, nobody experiences grief and trauma the same. We're snowflakes like that. Individual experiences lead to different symptoms and outcomes. Like that's so generalized.
And I think the sort of generic like things that aren't helpful on any level, whether you lost a parent, a partner, like a child, whatever it is, like saying everything happens for a reason, they're in a better place.
Like, everything happens for a reason. Are you serious?
Like, no. Something just happened.
What? It's tough to come at that perspective because, that's, I think, could be pretty religious and stuff. And I don't have that perception of the world. I just don't.
Same. And I think saying like, oh, they're in a better place, or like it was all part of God's plan. It's like, are you quoting like the Drake song? Because no.
Yeah. That's a great song. And
and I was like,
but it's a different meaning. It's different.
It's different. It's different. So, things like that. I think, you're surrounded by the right people, like you just know, and they are there to listen. And I don't know. I just think like it's okay for people to come and go from your life when there's like a major loss. Like any relationship, whether it's around loss or not, like friendships come and go, and that's totally normal, especially in your 20s and 30s. Like,
yeah, as an adult, you realize how much effort it takes to be in someone's life, and and whether your effort is being reciprocated or not. And we have the power to make those choices. Like when we first started talking about Phil's death, and your awareness of being able to say no, and all these people and all these things, and just saying, okay, well, do I want to continue to be friends? Who's going to really help me? Who do I want to put that effort into? And feeling that out can actually be helpful, maybe, to building
totally
like a better support system that actually supports,
Yeah, because it's so easy to be like, on paper, like I should reach out to this person, but again, like you don't have to.
Yeah, and it's difficult. And I've definitely come a long way in my ability to do that. And I've always kind of prided myself on being able to talk to people about difficult things, because I always wish there was someone like to talk to me about my difficult things.
Mm-hmm.
But I have been in the place where I was losing somebody and I didn't know how to process it. And by the time I was able to reach out, they were gone. And I definitely regret that, and take that awareness of, even if I don't know what to say, I'm going to be thoughtful and just say something, that I'm thinking of you, that I'm here, checking in, did you eat today? Just to be present, like parenting, right? The most important thing is just to be there and present. So.
Completely. Well, and I mean, I know, it's different, but and everyone's experiences with all of this are different, but would like love to hear your own experiences with anniversaries and like all of this grief stuff and loss.
Yeah, I think I'm on a different flip of the coin. Something I mentioned earlier was understanding that you can be grieving somebody that's still alive, and a relationship and a person that is no longer. Um, I have kind of more what I call trauma anniversaries, and there are times in my childhood, of certain days that I remember really bad abusive things happened in front of me and to me. Um, and I actually, as a little kid and kind of a teenager, I didn't know that I had been traumatized. It wasn't until I was in my 20s and pursuing therapy again, out here in California, that I had this awareness that just because I had moved across country and started a new life, and it didn't quite affect me in my daily life yet, I was over it and fine, and I wasn't traumatized. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I went to therapy to try to address a phobia, and then through that I realized what these memories actually affected. And then in my 20s and my 30s, still it affected my behavior and my relationships, the way these traumatic experiences stay with me.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I struggled with as a kid in 1998 on the 4th of July was what I consider one of the worst days of my life. And so I was 11, and then as a kid, every year that would come around again, and I just hated it. I was so against it, and I really didn't want to celebrate it. And it's a big party day and this and that. And I feel like unhealthily force myself to sit in those thoughts and feel that pain. Whether that was intentional or not, I'm not sure. But I did not have any coping skills for the first 15 years of dealing with that. And really, it wasn't until 2 years ago, when I did dialectic behavioral therapy, that I really got control over some of these anniversaries, and trauma reminders. So I don't remember the right day it happened, but anytime I see a knife now, it connects. And so my therapist made me write a list of all these traumatic memories and rate them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go through them each week, one memory a week, and I would record a retelling of it to her with my recorder, and walk all the way through it as if I was in that memory at that moment, using the present tense. And you do it for 20 minutes. And if the story doesn't last 20 minutes, you tell it again. And she'd ask you questions and guide you. And then for the week following, every single day, you listen to that memory and rate how you feel before, during listening, and after, every day. And it was an incredibly painful process, that every day have to sit down and listen to one of the worst days of my life, and these memories that kind of flash back. But at the end of the week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on the memory, I wouldn't be crying anymore when I heard it. I wouldn't be crying anymore when I retell it. And I'd say, this feels wrong. Like, I'm talking about witnessing some really horrific, violent things, and I'm not crying anymore about it. And she's like, yeah, that's the whole point. It's to bring down the emotional experience of reliving those memories in your head, or on the day, or when you see something that reminds you of that. And then, the whole thing with like knives and stuff, I realized like I didn't own any sharp knives, and there was a very specific reason for that. And, doing exposure therapy, like watching dissections, I had to do that. Cutting a live chicken. Oh my God, no. Cutting like a chicken, like,
Breast.
like a rotisserie chicken, like
Yeah.
cutting that myself, and really facing, and what I call living my exposure lifestyle, exposing myself to those memories, in a structured, scientific way that guided me through it. So now, yeah, I think about the 4th of July, but it does
Hmm.
not have that hold of me. Yeah, I get uncomfortable with knives and stuff, but I use them, and I'm a good cook now. And, different things like that. I really had to face it. And I spent a lot of the time just kind of, blinders on, like I'm going to college, I got a job, I'm in a
Mm-hmm.
band, and like, my mom's across country, I don't have to worry about this. But really, it impacted me where I was in very toxic, abusive relationships. I was very unhealthy to myself and my body. I was
Hmm.
very depressed and couldn't do the things I love to do for over a decade. And it was like, wow, this is that trauma compiled.
Mm-hmm.
So I started reading books and understanding, instead of just feeling crazy and over dramatic, I'd have these really over the top reactions to things. And again, that was that trauma coming forward. So trying to process the grief is kind of been a separate ongoing journey as well. The grief of losing a person, um, a parent. And I remember my grandmother's funeral. That was a very, very sad grief loss for me. But it was interesting because my mother was not allowed to come, and her family didn't let her come. And I just remember the family talking to me there about my mom, like when she was younger, and they were talking about her in the past tense, like as if she had already died. And I was like in college, and I remember that hitting me and realizing that there was this separate person that I never really knew, and I saw in photos, but that really wasn't my experience. And she's never coming back. I've watched this
Mm-hmm.
disease devolve, and it's having to accept that does not take away the sadness of the reality. And I have to be very careful about leaning in and dipping into that, because that can be so overwhelming, because there's no solution, there's no good happy ending feeling. It's just that process of continuing to accept, and then at the same time opening the heart again and realizing she is still alive, and she's an incredible person, an incredible survivor. And I have a relationship with a way that keeps me healthy and safe and allows me to love the person that I'm lucky enough to still have alive. So it's a lot. And I think something maybe you can relate to is just that feeling that even if your mind is not processing it, your body is feeling it. And sometimes, like, I would have these
Totally.
panic attacks and I wouldn't know why. And they say, well, what were you thinking about? And I wouldn't know why. But the body truly stores that trauma in a chemical response that you feel, the stress
Oh,
hormones, the nausea, you know, the fear and the panic. And like, even as we're talking about this now, I'm like a little
tensing up.
shaky. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I mean, there's so many things there. I think it's the dialectic therapy is so interesting and sounds super intense and painful, but really, really effective
Yeah.
for the experiences that you went through. And I think although our experiences with our moms have been different, I think that there's still similarities there in like not really knowing that person.
Yeah. And looking
But
at
everyone else,
photos
yeah,
and
you're like, oh, let's like figure out more about who is
yeah.
this?
And is that me? And was
Yeah,
this, what happened? you know?
right. And two, like thinking through, and again, like this can come out of nowhere. It'll often happen, I think, when there is no specific date or like time years and years before that something intense happened. Like your body remembers things and stores things. So yeah, maybe you start feeling like anxious at a certain point and reliving those same feelings in your body. I have certainly felt that way after losing Phil. Like I think this was like in July of 2019. I met up with my younger sister, who I'm super close with. We went to LA for a weekend. We try to like every year go on like a sister's weekend where we'll like go meet up somewhere. It's usually somewhere in California and just like hang out, the two of us, and do something. So the first, so it had been about 7 months since Phil died, and yeah, I was really excited to hang out with her. But like the first night we were there, we went out to dinner. And I remember we had Italian food, we had wine. We weren't like partying it up, but I remember as soon as we got back to our Airbnb, I immediately felt like super nauseous and dizzy, like so dizzy. And I was like, okay, well, we both had like the same exact meal and the same wine. Like it's not food poisoning. Um, and then I started it was like a full on like panic attack, and I got like very sick. And yeah, I don't know what it was, but it was definitely grief induced. It was like the second time I'd really like gone out that year, or had some sort of like trip since losing Phil. And I mean, like my sister and I can have the most real, like candid conversations, but it also felt like an opportunity that weekend to like escape and like not have to deal, like to even get out of the Bay Area. I was like, thank God I can just like be in LA and like
just focus on something else for
and
a
have
little
some
bit.
fun and like hang out and like be ridiculous. But I was like, what is happening to me? Like, this is insane. And as soon as it passed, like as soon as I got sick and everything, had some water, had an ibuprofen, the next morning I felt fine and I didn't feel on edge, but like it was the weirdest thing. And yeah, I think it can hit when you least expect it. And it doesn't have to be as dramatic as that, but your body remembers things.
Yeah, I mean that definitely. I know panic attacks have different symptoms, but that sounds like panic attacks that I've had. The nausea, the sweatiness. I usually faint, but then get sick. It's very uncomfortable. And what I've struggled with for so long is that, well, why did you do
Yeah.
it? What was the thought? And sometimes I can point it out. I have a very clear phobia, and other times, maybe 60 to 70% of the time, I can't. And I think that's where, I've been in therapy for a really long time, and I struggled until dialectic behavioral, because it focuses on changing your behaviors. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
previously, I think talk therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy for me was focusing on changing those thoughts. But the thoughts were so subconsciously disconnected from the trauma in the body that I had to work from the body to help regulate and change the emotions versus the thoughts changing and regulating the emotions. It's just like a different approach. But yeah, and it's embarrassing and frustrating. Like I used to faint in school. I have a medical phobia, so a lot of classes, and just, not being able to explain it and understand, and like my, you know, all the parents and people in charge is, oh, she's being dramatic, oh, she wants attention. And it's like, no, dude, this is PTSD. And when I was 16, they finally diagnosed it as PTSD and panic disorder. And it's like, your girl has gone through some stuff and she's a kid. So it's like the body, a lot of people I think can dismiss mental illness and things like depression and anxiety and panic disorder and OCD and bipolar and things, because they don't see the scientifical physical connections in the brain to the body, but it's there. And
Yeah,
so
I
reading
feel
these
like
books makes it so much more valid, because normally I'm just like, wow, I'm crazy, why am I doing this?
yeah, I think your mind and especially like your mind and your gut, like they're just like so connected, and it's trippy. But yeah, your body does not fuck around when it comes to storing like those traumatic, intense experiences, like even over time. And I think maybe we can just talk a little bit about like over time, does that trauma, like what happens to that trauma? Does it like go away for you? How do you work through it? Like,
It never went away. I shoveled it deep down to the sides, and then in my mid to late 20s, it started coming back into a way where I just spiraled. My relationships were incredibly unhealthy. I was unhealthy to myself. I was very unhappy. And that's kind of when I realized it's from my childhood. It's just it's always been there with me, and it's programmed me the way I had to survive into not effective living anymore for happiness. So these panic attacks happened all through my teens, my childhood, teens, 20s, and still happen today. So that's something I think I will live with for the rest of my life. But what's changed is the frequency, the intensity, and the recovery time. Even with anxiety attacks and depression, um, the span of them is shorter. I actually have skills to get through it. Been through a bunch of therapy, and it wasn't until DBT that someone actually told me what to do during a panic attack to get through it quicker. So, when those moments come up, whether it's something that I saw that triggered it, somewhere I visited,
Mm-hmm.
I have to be very careful about not avoiding things, avoiding places, people, and things that remind me of trauma. I have to lean in and do my exposure lifestyle so that the emotional and physical reaction comes down. If
Hmm.
you show your body, so my therapist explained this to me, if you're getting arousal and anxiety, and you stop doing whatever you're doing, you turn the show off, you stop reading, you stop going through it, you reinforce a pattern in your brain that says you can't handle it.
Hmm.
So that creates that wall and that level of intensity that will be there. But if you get through it, you recognize your peak emotional, physical experience, and you continue to watch, you continue to read, you get through it. It teaches your body that you can handle it, that you can tolerate it. And if you have those experiences time and time again, you start to build this smaller reaction, right?
Hmm.
Maybe you come back quicker. You have a panic attack and it doesn't take you 2 hours to recover, but you lay down, you breathe through it, and you get up and you're back. And I had that experience the other day with something with a knife, and
Hmm.
I came back and I was like, hey man, it still happened, but I can tolerate it. It was way less, way quicker, and I was back up, rebounding quicker. So unfortunately, I can't subscribe to the, you'll get over it.
Oh
Um,
no.
I think trauma does affect you in different ways, whether you experience it as a child versus as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's more about learning to cope and live and accept, and then pull yourself back into the present and back into the beauty and the good things that are happening right now, right? We're happiest when we're right now, not worrying about the future or sad about the past. So I always try to, see those bubbles, acknowledge, maybe do I need to feel it? No. Okay. And let it go. And then be grateful and be like, hey, look, at this moment, I'm here doing this podcast. I'm smiling. And that cloud will come back, and I have to just keep deciding, okay, do I need to feel it? Okay, I'll feel it. Okay, now your time to go.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah. I mean,
it's
you're
a
so right.
process.
Yeah, there's the whole like getting over it is a lull. Like that's never gonna happen. The reality is that, you work through it and you don't move on, but like you move forward from it.
Yes. Oh,
And
I love that.
but it's still gonna pop up in like these ways when you least expect it. But I think over time, it gets easier, even if it feels like you're going backwards. Like, even if it feels like you're regressing or something because you have a panic attack about something or you break down randomly when you're like driving around or whatever it is. I think that like over time, whatever tools you use, whether it's talk therapy, dialectic therapy, writing, however you work through it, I think that it becomes easier to live your life. And the moments that trauma or memories of those loss like pop up and you're like, hey, you're like, okay. And it's like, okay, ow, that hurts. And I'm going to sit with it. And then like, I'm going to be in the moment and look ahead. But, even though it's so much easier said than done, like it gets better. Like the more time that passes, I think it really, really helps. But I do think that like whatever you're going through, whatever it is, like you have to you can't just like assume that time will handle it all. Like you have to put in the work, whatever that looks like for you.
Yeah, that's very true. You can't just let it sit and stagnate and marinate, because that's kind of what I did with my childhood, and moving across country thinking things were good and having this aha moment of like, yo, this is in me and I've got to figure this out and face this in whatever way I can. And it wasn't always just therapy, reading self-help books, writing, creating art, making songs, sleeping, doing nothing. I just want to say, as far as coping with these trauma anniversaries, grief anniversaries, death, something I learned is incredible. It seems so easy and like, oh, it's not going to matter. It so matters and it's huge. And so even when I'm approaching a stressful situation that's going to, prompt, so we say prompt instead of triggered because it's a little softer, but it prompts these emotional experiences, is a self-care plan. And it sounds very much like what you did on Phil's anniversary, is having this plan of how you're going to listen to your needs and take care of them. So if you're going into a situation or with a person or a date or something's coming up, what are you going to do to plan to take care of yourself? Is it going to be something you like to eat? Are you going to treat yourself to a new magazine? Are you going to leave ample time for a nap? Are you going to distract yourself with a project? And, planning that out. So I was like, what does that matter? But it's like, it makes all the difference, I have a scary doctor's appointment right after I'm going to McDonald's and getting fries. And before you know it, you get through that moment and you're there eating fries. And it's important to plan something to take care of yourself, because no one is in charge of that but you. And
I think too, like to the idea of like self-care, it's important to remember that like really whatever is good for you. I think that the term self-care gets thrown around a lot of like, oh, like 3 bottles of rosé, self-care, or like, but self-care can be as simple as like going for a walk around the block, turning your phone on airplane mode, like setting boundaries with your friends, or like getting a bagel after a scary doctor's appointment, or fries, or whatever it is. I think though that like, I don't know, just being like online, seeing all the gummy vitamin slingers on Instagram, it can be so easy to be like, oh, self-care. Like, I'm going to go buy this thing, but whatever makes you feel good.
yeah, and remember, no shoulds. You're laying in bed, you're feeling really tired and fatigued, and oh, but I should go work out, or I should get up and do. If you can take a break, and your body is telling you to take a break, take a break.
Yeah, take a
There's
nap.
no should. And also remember that self-care is not all self-indulgent. Self-care can be
Totally.
difficult. It can be going to the doctors to take care of your body, setting the difficult boundaries, eating something bad, making choices that aren't always the easiest, but they
Drinking
pay off.
water.
They pay off. And
Yeah.
self-care can be self-rewarding and self-soothing and self-distracting, but it's also really caring and taking care of our health and our mental well-being.
Oh yeah, like
Which is hard.
journaling. Yeah, it can be as simple as like drinking water, journaling, like
Take a bath.
take a bath, whatever it is. Get out of bed, like walk around. Yeah. Well,
There's so many options, and it's all about what's finding right for you, like what fits for you in that moment. And it's not going to be mapped out. There are a lot of suggestions and things you can try, but what fits you, and what feels good, feels good.
yeah, I would say like now more than ever, just checking in with yourself. There's so many things compounded by this pandemic, not only the losses of, friends and family, but things that may have happened in your past, and then like all these lost possibilities and time. So for all of us, just remembering to like take it day by day, and the uncertainty doesn't help, but really trying to just like be in the moment as much as you can, and ultimately like looking out for yourself.
Yeah, one day at a time. Sometimes you got to break it down to 1 hour at a time. I just thought of one more thing I'd like to share. When you're having a panic attack or this emotional physical reaction, something I've found very helpful that I learned in DBT is when you're feeling it, you notice it. to
Mhm.
try to name it and describe it to yourself. Is this
Mhm.
is this like a blue sphere exploding? Is this a dark, heavy cement block? Is this water sloshing in your head? What color is it? And naming it and describing that experience in kind of a visual way. Maybe you want to draw it, write about it, or even just say it out loud helps decrease the emotional experience of it.
Oh,
So,
I like that.
little tip, oh, what does this feel like? And as soon as you step back, you're removing yourself from the roller coaster. Emotions are up and down roller coasters, just like a panic attack, and you can strap in and go, wee! Or you can step off the roller coaster and watch it and experience it from a non-judgmental, participatory experience. So that's how I try to remove myself off the roller coaster. Doesn't always work.
Hey, I'm
But
going to try that because I haven't before, and
I like
God knows
drawing
it's
them.
going to happen. Yeah.
Drawing them is really cool. I used to draw them just like, what does this anxiety moment look like right now? What does this feel like? And it's usually scribbles and stuff, but it's cool. So I just wanted to throw that in there while we wrap up.
I love that. And thank you for sharing some things that were hard and a lot, and I know painful, but I think that in some way, those listening in can relate. And yeah, props to you for just like still continuing on through all of it.
Honestly, I want to say the same to you. And I want to acknowledge, I appreciate you acknowledging that, because I kind of always feel at the end of these conversations of, did I say too much? Is this too much? Is this embarrassing? But this is my reality, and there is shame there. And so to diminish that shame, I'm going to say it out loud. And maybe that will help other people who are feeling that shame as well, that this is okay. And it's a reality that is out there. But, the more people who don't talk about it, the more that shame kind of continues to ride. So I'm going to say it out loud. There's no reason for me to feel ashamed. It is what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, these are our lives, and everyone's life is beautiful and crazy and a mess and just full of twists and turns. So, yeah, I think that we just all have to feel it out and be kind to ourselves and know that like we're not alone, even if our experiences are different.
Yeah. And just, I want to say thank you too for sharing about what you've been through and the losses and how you dealt with that, because it really helps me personally. And I have always admired how you cope and get through things. And, I'm just grateful for that. So thank you.
I'm grateful for you. Oh my gosh.
So much love.
So much fun. Well, we know this has been a lot, but thank you all for tuning in to a very different episode 2 of the Alex Files. We'll be back next time with something a little different, but we appreciate you coming with us on this very big grief, loss, trauma journey, because we know it's a lot, but hey, welcome to the world. It's life. And we'll be back next time. You can catch us, wherever you're listening to this podcast now.
Yes. And if you like it, tell your friends, subscribe, give us a review, let us know how we're doing and what you'd like us to talk about in the Alex Files.
Yeah. Smash the like if you'd like it. If not, maybe just, whatever.
Like, don't smash the thumbs down. I mean, you don't have to.
Just like maybe like hold back.
It's okay. But if someone's being a hater out there, usually it means you're onto something cool and good. So
that's true. That's true.
Feel it out, follow your gut, but also like approach the world with kindness.
Exactly. In the words of Harry Styles, treat people with kindness.
Whoa.
We love you. Alex is out.
See you in the cabinets.